Hi, guys, I'm Eli,
And I'm Sam.
and this is the 412 Christian Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how to let go and let God. I'm going to start with Proverbs 16, the first three verses. And this is what it says: The preparations of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirits. Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established. So the reason kind of I picked out these verses, like I said, we're talking about how to let go and let God. And I really like the end, verse 3, where it says, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. Because as long as you give your works or basically anything over to God, your thoughts will be established. So, and I can sometimes think about, maybe there'll be an instance where you go up and talk to somebody, or you don't go and talk to somebody about the word because you're worried about maybe the outcome, or that you won't realize, or you won't be able to think of something if they ask a question. Maybe you can't answer a biblical question. But I think that verse in 16:3, it really shows that maybe that won't be the case. Maybe if you do go and talk to him and give it all over to God as you're kind of talking to him, he'll kind of guide you in that situation.
I think sometimes I tend to overplan, or I tend to let my own plans and my plans and what I want the outcomes to be take over my life. And then, like, in some instances, it can kind of get me upset because it's not the outcome I wanted. But I learned later on that it's not the outcome I need to be in, because God, He puts you where He needs you to be, and if He doesn't think you need to be there, it may, like, at the moment, it may feel like God's against you, like, oh, He's against me, He doesn't want me to do this, He's like discouraging me from doing anything. But later on, He might give you another opportunity to do something else will be a better outcome and a better, I guess, place for you at that time. And
100%.
what did you say?
Yes, sir,
Oh, okay.
100%.
And the way I was, like, where I was kind of coming from that with too, is where I actually read it in devotional last night. The verse, Proverbs, same chapter, Proverbs 16, verse 9, where it says, the heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And I think a lot of times in our lives, we plan our way. We plan our schedule out. We have our work schedule, have all the schedules. So life has so many steps. And a lot of times, I know with myself personally, if the plans that come out the way I'm wanting, or like if I'm like, oh, I'm planning for this to happen, or I made plans for like some opportunity opportunity to get voted in on. I may have so much plan that I am not getting it, and I get discouraged. But the thing is like, no matter what you plan, the outcome needs to come from the Lord. It's the outcome that you want isn't always what's needed, because a lot of times it can be later on down the line, it can be something that can hurt you. And I can also come back to, like, I guess, like, planning. I guess it can come back to, like, planning for your future, like planning for your future job, and to, like, I guess because it's important to plan, because without planning, your life can go in shambles. But it's like, if you let that plan take over your life, and it's like, oh, it has to go this way, or it's not going to happen, or if it's this way or the highway, or it's like not going to happen unless it happens this way, that can take over our lives, and that can often make us fall away from the Lord, because it's like we may not understand why He wants us to do that. But also, there's one more verse that I wanted to read. It was a few verses, or a couple verses before. It was verse 7, chapter 16. And it's, when a man's ways please the Lord, He makes even his enemies be at peace with him. And I think a lot of times, Eli, were talking about this a minute ago, that even when we're following God and we're following what He wants us for our lives, even our enemies will be at peace with us. Because it's like, if we're following God, we shouldn't have any more problems. We shouldn't have enemies, because enemies that's something you shouldn't have in your life. I mean, it's part of life, but it's something you shouldn't have in your life. And when you have peace with the Lord, you don't have enemies. And it's like, that's one thing that stood out to us when we were talking about
So
it.
it kind of goes back to, if God is for us, who can be against us? Because and that's kind of what I think about on that verse 7 as well. But something I also think about in verse 7 was when it says, when a man's ways please the Lord. Like Sam said, we kind of talked about how, if you always please the Lord, you're not going to have to struggle with whether or not people will like you or not, or things like that. And at the end of the day, there's going to be some people that always try and find something wrong with you. But you can have good faith and knowing that as long as you're pleasing the Lord, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Let's see. I was also kind of thinking about too. There might be there's a lot of instances where people are like, end up being late to work or to church, or maybe their alarm doesn't go off and they miss class or miss exam or things like that. But people always, or a lot of people always like to bring it back to, well, if I would have woken up or early to make it to class, or if I wouldn't have been late to church, then maybe something would have happened. Maybe I would have gotten a wreck or things like that. And, of course, nobody can say if that's 100% correct or not, but a lot of people like to think that that was God's kind of divine intervention on maybe being a little late to something because there was something bad that was going to happen. So I'd like to think that's how it happens sometimes as well. But I just thought I'd point that out real quick.
I had one thing I thought about. I saw this video this morning. It was it's just a short clip. You know how Facebook videos can be, or like TikTok. You just scroll and there's short videos. And it was talking about I only heard part of it. A girl, her parents were supposed to do something, and then something ended up happening, and so they weren't able to take a flight to. It was something. It was they were going from some country to another country. It was had a lot of connecting flights. But what ended up happening was that everybody in that flight died. And if her parents would have been on that, if that wouldn't have happened, then her parents would have been dead. So it's a lot of times if it feels like a really, really big inconvenience, or oh, I wanted it to happen this way, but it didn't, you get really upset. A lot of times it can be for the better. Like Eli said, the car accident, that's what made me thinking about it. It can prevent you from getting a car accident from being late, or that's all I was thinking about with that.
But. Yeah, for sure. Another verse that I would like to point out is actually in Psalms. It's Psalms 46:10, and I'll once I can get there, I'll read it to y'all. Let's see here. And this is what it says. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." So even if you just take that first little stanza from those lines, is "Be still and know that I'm God." And that's just very comforting. Once again, we're talking about, letting go and letting God.
Mm-hmm.
So if when you're overwhelmed, or when you got a lot of things going on and you're stressed out, maybe a trip didn't go the way you had planned, or some things happened in that trip, or maybe just even you weren't able to do something because you got sick or something like that. Just pray about it and understand that God is God, and He can make a lot of different things happen. And so that's just a very comforting verse to me. And it also does leaps and bounds towards letting go and letting God in any situation. Like I said, I think you can use that really in any way of life, whether you're overwhelmed, stressed, you have anxiety, anything like that. As long as you be still and know that He is the Lord, then you can do a lot of things.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, another crazy situation. My aunt and uncle on their honeymoon, actually, my uncle, something happened. It was they had a hotel. They were in maybe Cozumel, I think. Cozumel, and they were at a nice resort, and they were getting on the balcony, and somehow in the world, he tripped over where the door slides open, the little barrier right there. He pulled something in his leg. Either pulled a tendon in his leg or something, and it's pretty bad to the point where they couldn't stay at the trip anymore because he wasn't worth it. He had to stay in the room the entire time. But they ended up able to go back. But at the time, there was their honeymoon. So it was the time where they're supposed to have the best time, because it was they just got married. And so even the worst situation, he was saying, you getting sick on a trip, even in the best situation, God will provide later on, or He'll give you the opportunity to go back. And it's I thought that'd be a good little I guess somehow we can apply it to something that could happen to you in your life. Yeah. But I really like that verse. Is really encouraging. I've always heard that for really lots of years, because I know there's a song that we sing, a hymn. It's called "Be Still and Know That I'm God," and that's some there. I think that's one of the verses. Just be still and know that I am God, and it repeats that a lot, because I think a lot of times we should when we're in the craziness, we should be still and just calm down and just remember that God has control of that, even when it feels like everything's just going as out of control. And I feel like we should learn to trust Him and trust Him and never stray away from Him.
Too, I also think that, of course, I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of you listening, or just in general, I'm sure a lot of people know about that verse, but it doesn't make it any easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying all these things, but we're also talking to ourselves in most of these, where it is a lot tougher than you actually think it is. You read that and like, yeah, it's very encouraging, but it's like at the same time, if you don't do anything about it, then it's kind of it's kind of pointless. But it is, like I said, it's a little tougher than what the verse lets on to be. But most of the time, it's not because the Bible or God makes it tougher. It's just we make it tougher on ourselves because we're human, and of course, we're not perfect. So.
We tend to make things tough on ourselves just because I think I get stuck on one thing sometimes, and I can't get off that. And if it doesn't come out that way, it makes it worse. And I think we just learn to, like, in those tough times when it's like we feel like everything's raining down on us, we need to know that God's plan is what's the plan we should follow, not just our own plan. Because a lot of times our heart can deceive us, and it's like, there's a verse, but I can't remember at the moment. But there's a verse that talks about like your heart can deceive you. Mm-hmm. But I was going to go and move on to our next verse, which is Matthew chapter 11, and we're going to start in verse 28. Matthew 11, verse 28. And it reads, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And so it's pretty much just saying, just based off that first verse, is those who come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and it's like come to me when you're hurting, when you're feeling good, because it's good to come to God in the bad and the good circumstances, but mainly when you feel like everything's ran down you, like I said before, and you feel like God's not on your side, come to God, because when you come to God, He will come closer to you. He will help you in the situations when it feels like He's not helping you. But He will give you rest, and He will find a solution for whatever that problem might be, or whatever that situation, whatever happened in that situation. He'll give you another opportunity, or He might give a second path to go to. Even though it may not feel like the path that you need to be going to, it's like a path that can benefit you in other ways than you think. And it's just important that we always find rest in God, because one day we're going to be with Him one day, and if we don't rely on Him now, then we won't be able to rely on Him later on, because we won't be with Him. So,
something that I just kind of thought about, one thing that's kind of wild about, the whole divine intervention or whatever you want to call it. I have a little widget or whatever you call it, on your phone, where when you open it, you can see all these different things. Mine's like the Bible app, and I have it like it gives the daily verse right when I open my phone. So it's kind of neat, but it's kind of crazy is I know that I'll catch myself. I typically read that verse either in the morning or right before I go to bed, depending on when I remember about it and get to. That sounds kind of bad, but just kind of when I remember to read it and sit down, and when I have some time to kind of think about it, of course. But a lot of times I'll catch myself, thinking about something being heavy on my heart, and then I'll think about, I have that daily verse, and almost 100% of the time, it's really weird. It actually goes along with what I was thinking about, and you can say that's just a coincidence, or you could say that I would like to think that that's God knowing what I'm struggling with, and like, hey, this is the daily verse, because this is the daily verse for you. But I will say that a lot of times it probably just happens to be a coincidence, but I'd like to say, a lot of times that's God showing me that, whatever I have, letting go and letting God, or letting go and just really focusing on Him is always a good thing. So that's kind of also what I like about these few verses in Matthew 11, because like Sam was saying, if you come to Him, if you're heavy laden, or even if you're, like Sam said, even if you're not, it's always good to come to Him, because He can always ease your mind regardless of what the situation is.
I agree. And I was on the read where I found that verse originally, Proverbs 16:9. Is this book my mom gave me for Christmas. I I'm gonna be for real. I didn't touch it for like maybe 2 months after, maybe honestly 3 months, 3 or 4 months after my mom gave it to me. And then one day I was like, I just can't give myself time. So I thought about a lot of times I ended up forgetting about it, and like that was one of my, New Year's resolutions was to read more. And I was like, well, let me just start reading this. And there's a lot of I didn't really think about, but there's like I have a verse. I'll kind of show y'all. It has like a verse just right there, and then there's like a little passage below it. And it's just all different stuff. There's like different little meanings for each one, but the one I found here is about choices, and that's where I kind of came up. Thought about for today's topic was it says the mystery of God's will, and the verse actually was Proverbs 16:9, and it said, "In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps." And so this what I'm about to read is not my thoughts; it's just what thoughts were in the book, and it kind of helped me to like have peace because I helped me with my struggles, and it's said, "What a mystery your will is, Lord. I pray I make my plans and execute my choices, and yet because you are my sovereign God, you determine the outcome. What a great and wonderful source of confidence. You determine my steps. You have my back, Lord. Thank you for working even my mistakes into profitable outcome. Praise you for your excellent wisdom." And that's where I was trying. That verse really, it pretty much said what they kind of had some commentary on the verse where it talks about when you remember that God has your back, when you remember that He is a sovereign God, He is all powerful God. His plans and His like outcomes is what we should trust. And it's like what it says right here, what a great, wonderful source of confidence. You determine my steps, you have my back. So even when we feel like we planned everything, like our plan is what needs to be done, He has our back, and we need to remember that He has our back, and we don't need to forget that.
So that's kind of what all we've got about letting go and letting God. I hope y'all got something out of that. A couple of key takeaways that I would take away for even myself, and hope that y'all kind of got this as well, is one, of course, let go and let God in any circumstance, regardless of if you're, in a really good headspace or even when bad. And honestly, a lot of times it's harder to give it all over to God when you're in a good circumstance, because you're so happy, you're on a high, that sometimes, unfortunately, we don't think about that. But do that, like I said, when you're happy, when you're sad, when maybe things aren't going right in your life, or even when they are. And also kind of what Sam has been getting at is that regardless of if it's like planning or anything like that, give that over to God, pray more, and just, don't worry about the things that you can't control, but also some things you can control. Of course, you're going to worry about them, but at the same time, it always ends up, most of the time, I could say, it always turns out for the better. So, Sam, you got anything else before we?
I don't think so.
Set it up? All right. Well, thank y'all for listening. I know we hadn't posted in a while. We've been really busy with finals and all that good stuff. But we're going to start trying. We're on Christmas break now, so we're going to try and get maybe 3 or 4 together, so that way we can post more throughout next semester. But I hope y'all got something out of that. I know I did, and I'm sure Sam did as well. And thank y'all so much again for listening or watching, wherever y'all do that. And thank you to Ministry League, of course. They always post our podcast on their app that you can get on your phone, or you can look it up on Google or whatever. And they're just really willing to get the Lord's name out there in any way they can. There's also a bunch of different other podcasts. So if ours isn't good enough or whatever, you can go over there, and there's a lot of other great ones that cover different things. But
should we do a prayer real quick before we go? Yeah. I'll go and pray us out, and we can see you later. But dearly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the time we've had to kind of explore in your word and learn from the things that's in our word and try to apply them to our lives. And I pray that we also don't forget the importance of letting the Lord have our, trust that his outcome is the best outcome for whatever we plan. I pray that we can, matter that might be in school, for our future, for whoever we want to marry, for whoever our parents, whatever we're trying to plan for. I pray that we can always trust that his outcome is the best outcome. And I pray that we can, coming from forget what book it is, but pray that we can be still and know that you are God, and your plan is what we need to follow. And I pray pray that we remember that into the new year, and I pray that we can have a good winter breaks. I know the semester can be hard, whether you're in college or high school, middle school, however old you are. Pray that we can remember that He can always help us no matter the situation. I pray that we can let us have a good break, and pray to be with everyone that's starting back at school next semester. Pray that they can have a good semester, and pray that their grades can be whatever your will is, whatever you think is the best outcome for how our work is. And I pray that you keep us safe throughout this holiday, and let us have a good holiday with our families. And it's just something we pray. Amen.
One more thing real quick. Also, if you do enjoy this, please share it with other people. Not just for us to get gratitude or whatever, or for us to get happy that we're growing the podcast, but it's just really, truthfully, it's because we want to reach as many people as we can, because some people don't get to hear the word as much as other people do. So that's not us really being selfish. It's just us more of wanting to reach other people, so that way, and regardless of what it is, because if you share that, it might end up opening something that you can even talk to them about. So if y'all do enjoy this, please, it would mean a lot to us if you would share it, because we're trying to do our best to grow God's kingdom, and y'all also are growing God's kingdom. So just having more people to listen on makes our day, and it also hopefully pleases God. So again, thank y'all for listening, and I think that's it. So see y'all next time.
See ya.